January 10, 2026, Iran is erupting. For nearly 2 weeks, massive protests have swept cities nationwide, fueled by deep frustration and a demand for change. The world is watching as the government faces its most serious challenge in decades. President Trump has issued a stark warning to Tehran: avoid violence or face severe consequences. These protests are about more than one issue. They're the result of years of economic hardship and political repression. Ordinary Iranians are risking everything, demanding a better future. This moment could reshape Iran and the Middle East for years to come. The unrest began on December 28, 2025, when thousands of Iranians took to the streets in cities across the country. What started as small gatherings quickly grew into massive demonstrations as word spread through social media and whispers in crowded markets. The air was thick with tension and anticipation, as people from all walks of life began to voice their frustrations in public for the first time in years. The immediate spark was the soaring cost of living. Prices for food, fuel, and medicine had skyrocketed, and the Iranian currency was in freefall. Families found themselves unable to afford even basic necessities, and many shops stood empty, their shelves bare. The economic crisis was felt in every home, and the sense of desperation was palpable. Everyday essentials have become unaffordable, and the government's economic policies have only made things worse. Years of mismanagement, corruption, and international sanctions have left the economy in shambles. For many Iranians, it felt like there was no end in sight, and hope was fading fast. Shopkeepers, students, and workers, once silent, now march together, united by anger and hope. The protests have brought together people who might never have spoken to each other before. Young and old, religious and secular, men and women. Their shared frustration has forged a powerful sense of solidarity. The protests quickly shifted from economic grievances to bold, political demands. What began as calls for lower prices and better jobs soon turned into open criticism of the government and its leaders. People began to demand accountability, transparency, and real change. Chants of "death to the dictator" echo in over 100 cities, directly challenging Supreme Leader Khamenei. The slogans are louder and more defiant than ever before, signaling a dramatic shift in the public mood. For many, this is no longer just about economics, it's about reclaiming their dignity and their future. Open dissent is dangerous in Iran, but the movement is growing. Protesters face the threat of arrest, violence, and even death, yet they continue to gather, undeterred by the risks. Their courage has inspired others to join, and the movement shows no signs of slowing down. What started as a cry for relief has become a nationwide call for freedom. Across Iran, people are demanding not just economic reforms, but fundamental rights and freedoms. The protests have become a symbol of hope for a better future. Iranians from all walks of life are demanding a new system, one that respects their voices and their rights. The world is watching as a new chapter in Iran's history unfolds, written by the courage and determination of its people. The government's response has been swift and brutal. Within hours of the first major demonstrations, heavily armed riot police flooded the streets, determined to crush any sign of dissent. The air was thick with tension as security forces moved in, wielding batons and shields, their faces obscured by masks. Protesters, young and old, found themselves facing a wall of force as the authorities made it clear that no opposition would be tolerated. Since January 8th, a near-total internet and phone blackout has isolated millions. The government cut off digital lifelines, plunging entire neighborhoods into darkness and silence. Families were unable to contact loved ones, and activists lost their ability to organize or share what was happening. The blackout was not just a technical measure, it was a calculated move to keep the world in the dark and to break the spirit of those resisting. Security forces, including the powerful IRGC, now patrol the streets day and night. Armored vehicles rumble through city centers, and checkpoints have sprung up on every major road. Reports of violence and deaths are mounting, with eyewitnesses describing scenes of chaos and fear. The presence of the military is a constant reminder that the regime is willing to use any means necessary to maintain control. Human rights groups estimate dozens killed, including children. The true toll may be even higher, as many families are too afraid to speak out or even claim the bodies of their loved ones. Vigils and makeshift memorials have sprung up in quiet corners, where grief and anger mingle in the flickering candlelight. State TV brands protesters as vandals, blaming them for violence and destruction. Government officials appear on screen, vowing harsh punishments, even death, for those who dare to challenge their authority. The official narrative is clear: dissent will not be tolerated, and anyone who resists will pay a heavy price. The regime's strategy is to silence dissent through fear, force, and isolation. Streets that once echoed with chants for freedom now lie empty, patrolled by police and shrouded in uncertainty. Tear gas and mass arrests have become routine, as the government tries to stamp out any spark of resistance before it can spread. Yet, despite the blackout and bullets, the protests persist. In city squares and back alleys, people continue to gather, their voices rising in defiance. The courage of ordinary Iranians is on full display, as they refuse to back down in the face of overwhelming odds. Iranians are risking their lives, refusing to be silenced. Each act of protest is a testament to their determination and hope for a better future. Even as the regime tightens its grip, the spirit of resistance burns brighter than ever. The world is left piecing together the truth from the shadows. With information scarce and danger everywhere, journalists and activists rely on smuggled footage and whispered accounts to reveal what is happening. The struggle for freedom continues, even when the lights go out. The world is reacting, and the tension is palpable. Newsrooms across continents are buzzing, analysts are debating, and citizens everywhere are watching events unfold with a mix of anxiety and hope. The crisis in Iran has become a top headline, dominating conversations from Washington to Brussels, from Tehran to Tokyo. President Trump's warning to Iran is blunt and unmistakable. He declares that if the Iranian government harms its own people, the United States will respond forcefully. He emphasizes that there will be no deployment of American troops, but promises severe consequences, hinting at economic and diplomatic measures that could further isolate Iran. The message is clear: the US is watching, and it will not stand by if violence escalates. Some observers worry that this tough rhetoric could backfire, giving Tehran a pretext to intensify its crackdown on dissent. Iranian officials have already accused foreign powers of meddling, and now, with Trump's statements, they may feel justified in blaming outside interference for the unrest. On the streets, protesters face an uncertain future, caught between their government's response and the world's gaze. Meanwhile, European leaders and the United Nations are urging restraint on all sides. They call for calm, dialogue, and above all, respect for human rights. Leaders like Angela Merkel, Emmanuel Macron, and Boris Johnson have issued joint statements emphasizing the need for peaceful solutions and warning against any escalation that could endanger civilians. The international community is clearly divided. While America threatens swift action and takes a hardline stance, Europe pleads for diplomacy and negotiation. US officials stress the need for accountability, while European diplomats push for engagement and dialogue, hoping to prevent further bloodshed. Both sides claim to support the Iranian people, but their strategies could not be more different. The US favors pressure and isolation, believing it will force change, while Europe believes in dialogue and gradual reform. This split highlights the complexity of the crisis and the challenge of finding a unified international response. The crisis has now become a global flashpoint, drawing in leaders, diplomats, and ordinary people from around the world. With every new development, the stakes grow higher, and Iran's fate hangs in the balance, watched by a world that is both concerned and divided. Tonight, the world's eyes are fixed on Tehran, waiting to see what happens next in this unfolding drama. Inside Iran, leaders are divided. Supreme Leader Khamenei blames foreign enemies, calling protesters traitors. President Pezeshkian urges restraint, acknowledging real grievances. This split reveals cracks in the regime's unity. Exiled Crown Prince Reza Pahlavi calls for international support and a return to monarchy. Some protesters echo his slogans. Despite threats and blackout, Iranians keep marching, their demands growing bolder. The regime's authority is being openly challenged in the streets. The people's message is clear: they want a new beginning. These protests are the largest challenge to Iran's rulers in years. Economic pain has merged with a demand for political freedom. The outcome will shape the lives of 88 million Iranians and could shift the balance of power in the Middle East. The world watches, hoping for change but fearing escalation. Despite blackouts and bullets, Iranians' courage endures. Their fight is a reminder: the desire for dignity and freedom is universal. Iran stands at a crossroads, and its people are refusing to back down.